By 2033, the global artificial intelligence chip market will hit $700 billion a year. Staring at a single silicon wafer and realizing it represents a market larger than the gross domestic product of a medium-sized European nation feels like holding a winning lottery ticket. You just don't know how to cash. You hold this fragile piece of glass and metal in your hand, realizing the tiny disk dictates the future of global supremacy.
Capture 5% of that pie to generate $35 billion in new annual revenue alongside thousands of highly specialized engineering jobs. John Browne laid out a specific roadmap in The Guardian for the United Kingdom to act as a behind-the-scenes architectural force. The former chief executive of BP spent his career moving massive physical oil infrastructure around the globe. He is actually applying that exact logistical philosophy to the new oil of the digital economy.
You pull out your phone, type a prompt into an artificial intelligence generator, and watch the text appear, totally hypnotized by the magic trick on the screen. The software sort of feels like the main event, so you stare at the velvet curtains applauding the illusionist, while the hardware manufacturer quietly walks out the back door, carrying a bag stuffed with all the ticket revenue. OpenAI makes headlines every single day for consumer-facing magic.
The public market actually values OpenAI at roughly a tenth of NVIDIA. Advanced Micro Devices sits in a distant second place. Hardware startups like Cerebras and Tensorent fight viciously for a tiny sliver of the remaining pie. Lord Browne watched this hardware dominance solidify during his tenure on the Intel board of directors from 1997 to 2006, sitting alongside Gordon Moore and Andy Grove. They basically built the massive physical back end of the first internet boom.
Hardware margins eventually collapse when production scales globally. Assuming silicon manufacturers will remain the sole profit, Giants indefinitely ignores basic economic gravity. You build a massive factory. The global supply floods the market, and the price inevitably drops. We saw that cycle with flat-screen televisions, and smartphones followed the exact same trajectory. The physical hardware always commoditizes.
Autonomous robots and real-time translation tools face immovable physical constraints in the real world. Software optimization eventually hits a severe thermal and electrical wall. You can write the most elegant code in human history. That code fundamentally depends on the speed at which electrons travel across microscopic silicon pathways. Hardware stands as the permanent, unyielding bottleneck for all future digital innovation.
Controlling that physical bottleneck provides ultimate global pricing power. The cloud is just a massive windowless building in a desert filled with physical servers generating immense amounts of heat, consuming the electrical equivalent of small cities just to keep the cooling fans running. A small island nation finding a competitive edge against entrenched global juggernauts requires an undeniable historical advantage. Geographically and financially, the United Kingdom is completely outgunned.
British engineers built the very first general-purpose electronic computer, followed quickly by the world's first parallel computer. Cambridge-based ARM validates this historical pedigree by designing over 90% of the processors powering mobile phones and tablets globally. DeepMind provides a thriving foundational presence in the artificial intelligence ecosystem. Startups like Fractile and Flux are emerging directly from this established academic infrastructure.
Taking on NVIDIA directly in raw data center, computing equates to total financial suicide. A startup attempting to enter a market where entrenched American monopolies spend billions on a single research cycle faces immediate annihilation. You try to build a better data center chip, you get crushed by a company with a research budget larger than your entire national defense spending.
Abandoning the centralized data center race forms the core strategic pivot in the Guardian roadmap. The strategy dictates the United Kingdom must monopolize highly specialized applications. Robotics, factory automation, medical devices, and autonomous vehicles offer open terrain for completely new architectural philosophies. A massive data center chip consumes terrifying amounts of power and generates massive heat.
An autonomous vehicle processor must interpret visual data instantly, without waiting for a server connection. A medical device implant requires microscopic power consumption to function safely inside a human body. These engineering puzzles prioritize extreme physical efficiency over brute force calculating power. A delay of a millisecond in a self-driving car chip results in a physical crash.
ARM achieved global dominance by licensing hyper-efficient chip designs to massive external manufacturers. The United Kingdom can directly replicate this licensing model for the next generation of specialized artificial intelligence applications. They draw the immensely complex blueprints and license those designs to hardware manufacturers around the world. The architectural firm collects a massive fee without ever pouring a single ounce of concrete.
Selecting a hyper-specialized niche market becomes completely useless if the global supply chain splinters during an international trade war. The threat of China commoditizing the artificial intelligence chip market mirrors the historical collapse of the solar technology sector. China flooded the global solar market with heavily subsidized products a decade ago, forced prices to crater, and drove incumbent Western companies into immediate bankruptcy. A brilliant Cambridge design means absolutely nothing if a state-sponsored competitor steals the architecture to print a cheaper knockoff by the millions.
United States export controls actively prevent a repeat of the solar market collapse in the semiconductor space. Current trade restrictions completely block China from accessing advanced sub-3 nanometer fabrication technology for the next 10 years. The United States operates as the undisputed global manufacturing kingmaker. This geopolitical reality leaves the United Kingdom perfectly positioned as a vital, highly trusted design ally within a protected global ecosystem.
Manufacturing a sub-3 nanometer chip feels like trying to perform open-heart surgery with chopsticks during a massive earthquake. A single strand of human DNA is roughly 2.5 nanometers wide. Printing billions of microscopic transistors on a surface the size of a fingernail requires the most complex machinery ever built by our species. Relying entirely on American fabrication facilities for this level of manufacturing creates a massive strategic vulnerability for the United Kingdom.
Replicating American manufacturing infrastructure from scratch remains an absolute economic impossibility. The United Kingdom lacks the massive capital reserves required to construct modern fabrication plants. Their economic survival depends entirely on deep structural integration with leading United States chip manufacturers. The design files created in Cambridge must be physically printed on advanced sub-3 nanometer silicon inside American factories.
The stringent export controls provide a decade-long protective moat around this specific transatlantic partnership. You still need significant state resources to survive this geopolitical crossfire. Lord Browne outlines a four-step state intervention plan. Step 1 requires projecting an aggressive national determination to compete in the global artificial intelligence chip market.
State resources offer the only mechanism to scale this specific architectural ambition. Step 2 involves doubling the national chip design workforce from 12,000 to 24,000 professionals within a single decade. The government must secure 1,500 new electrical engineering and computer science students annually by offering highly generous academic bursaries.
Claiming you will conquer a $700 billion global industry by adding just 1,500 students a year sounds like trying to win a land war by recruiting a single high school marching band. You have massive tech conglomerates in California and Shenzhen employing hundreds of thousands of people. The British government thinks a couple of university cohorts in Cambridge will somehow turn the tide.
Chip design relies on extreme concentrations of high-level expertise. One single student solves a complex spatial math problem on a whiteboard in a Cambridge laboratory. A manufacturer in the United States prints that exact blueprint 4 billion times. The scaling factor is entirely divorced from the number of people in the room. These 1,500 students represent highly trained specialists writing the foundational physics rules for entirely new processor architectures.
Step 3 requires deploying specific financial levers to artificially engineer a domestic market. The state must utilize the British Business Bank and force capital into the ecosystem through the National Wealth Fund. Bureaucrats also need to enforce a strict mandate through the Ministry of Defense to buy British technology. You are using taxpayer money to guarantee these startups survive their first few years of existence.
Guaranteed defense contracts eliminate the immediate reliance on private venture capital. The military commits to buying British-designed chips for autonomous drones and advanced logistics networks. Startups secure immediate financial stability through these massive procurement orders. Step 4 demands solidifying the international innovation pipeline directly with United States chipmakers. Building heavily integrated supply chains with American partners guarantees British intellectual property translates directly.
Wait, that pipeline relies entirely on the whims of American political leadership. The United States frequently decides to prioritize domestic designs over foreign blueprints. The United Kingdom is attempting to orchestrate an entire economic ecosystem from the top down while outsourcing the single most critical physical step to a massive foreign power. You build the perfect blueprint and then hope the construction company actually answers the phone when you call.
Lord Browne's thesis rests entirely on the mutual dependency of this transatlantic alliance. The United States requires the specific architectural genius concentrated in British academic hubs to maintain their own global dominance. The new age of artificial intelligence will be written directly into physical silicon. American factories need optimal designs to maximize the efficiency of their incredibly expensive fabrication plants.
If the geopolitical security of the next century relies entirely on sub-3 nanometer architecture, future global conflicts will bypass physical borders entirely. The battles for absolute global supremacy will be fought via intense corporate espionage in Cambridge University design labs.